Why is it called Surveyors Ridge anyway? I mean, did old-timey surveyors survey the landscape from up here or something? I don't really know, and a cursory Google search didn't tell me the answer, and then I got bored, so I guess I'll just have to wonder forever without knowing, unless of course somebody can tell me in the comments. Located south of Hood River, Surveyors Ridge is really one of the finest mountain bike rides in Oregon. Just like the required reading in a lower division college course, Surveyors is required riding if you live within 80 miles of Hood River and fancy yourself a mountain biker. Surveyors Ridge is what you would call a canonical ride if there were a canon of mountain bike trails. What does canonical mean, you may be wondering? Well, in the classical humanities disciplines of history, philosophy, and especially literature, there is a lot of discussion about what books, essays, treatises, and other sources of human knowledge should absolutely be considered essential for someone to have read to be considered knowledgeable in that discipline. Discussion of what goes into the canon is an ongoing debate, to the point that some academics devote a significant portion of their professional time arguing about what does and does not belong in the canon. Harold Bloom wrote a very long book about what should be in the Western literary canon and why. It's great reading if you can't get to sleep. Should put you right out. Well, I think it could safely be argued that within any specific region, and maybe even across the sport of mountain biking worldwide, there are certain trails or networks of trails that are so significant for either historical or technical or just sheer excellence reasons that they should be considered canonical. That you can't consider yourself truly embraced into the sport, the discipline, if you will, until you've at least been introduced to them, or preferably ridden them once or twice. Indeed, all of the 44 trails could be considered canonical for historical reasons. Sandy Ridge should be considered canonical for reasons of variety and accessibility, as well as overall community engagement. Falls Creek is a regionally canonical trail for Southwest Washington residents. It could be argued that the trails in the Moab area are canonical from the perspective of the sport as a whole for both historical as well as progression-related reasons. Probably the entire North Shore in BC would be canonical. Whistler would be canonical. I could go on and on with this, and a group of mountain bikers could argue through a lot of beer and pizza about this, but you get the idea. All these trails and trail systems contribute something both unique and progressively evolutionary to the overall culture of mountain biking. That's what makes them canonical. So, with that in mind, Surveyors should be considered a canonical trail, at least for the Portland to Hood River region on its own. While it does connect with the 44 trails and takes on a lot of their character as you get to its south end, I don't think it's quite right to call Surveyors Ridge a 44 trail because it's unique in a lot of ways from the other 44 trails that kind of sets it apart. We'll come back to this discussion in a minute. Before you can even ride it, you're going to have to find it. And you get to Surveyors Ridge by driving south on Highway 35 from the Hood River exit for about 20 miles and turning left on Pinemont Drive. It doesn't look like there should be anything up there, but turn left and just trust me. Keep driving on Pinemont for 6 miles as it turns into Forest Service Road 17 until you get to an intersection right after a power line cut and turn right. If you see a parking area under some really big power lines, you've found the trailhead. From here, there are 2 right ways to ride Surveyors Ridge. You can either start here and ride it as an out and back on the trail, or you can ride your bike back down the road, turn right on National Forest Road 17, and ride the road up the hill to the other trailhead. I would personally recommend climbing up the road, as you want to ride back on Surveyors with the freshest legs possible. And the 3 miles from the north trailhead up to the first lookout are absolutely brutal. Do yourself a favor and climb the road. Now, I know a lot of you are going to throw shade in the comments and say how it's not that hard to climb the trail and you should just train more. Well, this is a review for general audiences. If you want to do a review about how superhuman strong and better than the rest of us you are, then start your own YouTube channel. It's free. Moving on, if you climb up the road, you're also going to burn through the miles a lot faster. The majority of it is even paved, a rare treat for these single-lane Forest Service roads. You'll gain about 1,000 feet in the first 5 miles, then lose 500, gain it back, and then top out at around 4,400 feet elevation before arriving at the end of the road and the beginning of the trail at around 9.5 miles. Now, on your way up the road, you'll encounter this intersection where the trail crosses the road. It's kind of near the end of the road, but it crosses. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that because you can just proceed down the road another mile to the next trail intersection where you can turn left to get on the trail here. That's what you want to do because the trail has a newly built section here that goes along the ridgeline above these really pretty meadows for a couple of miles before it crosses back over the road. It's gorgeous. You want to see this meadow. Now there is a lollipop loop that you can ride at the end here that's new if you go to the road intersection and take a right somewhere, but the connection wasn't like readily apparent the day that I rode it as the signage wasn't up yet. I'm sure I missed the best thing ever and totally did this ride wrong as a result. Sorry. Again, you can make your own YouTube channel. It's free. This south end of the Surveyors Ridge Trail feels a lot like one of the 44 trails, as it's close to those trails. It's really close, actually. There is a connector here that ties it into that system, and you can ride a Surveyor's Super Loop that incorporates a lot of the 44 trails as well as Surveyors as an out and back if you like to make riding bikes painful. But as you head north from here, the character of the forest and trail do change subtly. It becomes a little wetter, loamier, and less of that sand ash mix of the 44 trails and more the kind of compacted dirt you see at the bottom of Dog River, and it almost starts to resemble Post Canyon dirt in places more than the 44 trails. Granted, it will never look anything like Post Canyon as it doesn't go through a tree farm. It's also a ridge ride, and really most of the 44 trails aren't really ridge rides. They're a little bit flatter than that. Like they might have like side cuts that they go across, but I wouldn't call them like proper ridge rides like the Surveyors Ridge Trail is. It's unique that way. The point is that 9 miles of north-south expanse that the trail travels over goes through a lot of little microclimates, which lead to some significant differences in the type of forest you're riding through. Surveyors does share one notable and fortunately pleasant feature in common with the 44 trails, as well as Bend, which is the crisp feeling to the air that you can only get in high elevation transitional forest like this, as well as the butterscotch aroma of ponderosa pine. It's wonderful. Surveyors isn't an epic shred-tastic enduro fest. In fact, it's really quite the opposite. While there are some genuinely exciting descents, this is a ridge trail. As such, it grinds up and then drops and grinds up again. It also has one of the best features of ridge trails, which is lots and lots of exposure. And oh, what wonderful exposure it is. These are the best views you will ever get of the east side of Mount Hood, that eponymous mountain of mountains, whose profile graces Portland with her presence for the 3 days it isn't raining each year. If you haven't seen Mount Hood from the east side, you need to. Totally different mountain from this side. Furthermore, you'll see the expanse of the upper Hood River Valley with its neat little rows of orchards and wineries unfurled before you. It's epic. It's beautiful. It feeds your soul. These views will slow you down. You're going to want to stop and gawk. You're going to want pictures. Also, the genuinely pleasant forest here just beckons you to ride back at a slightly slower pace, to sort of just stop and let yourself take it all in. And you should. That's part of what makes this trail canonical. It's mountain biking just to be in the woods on a bike. Biking through the woods for its own sake and for no other reason. Just to see the views and have your bike with you. There are very few bike-specific features on this trail, aside from the final 3 miles back to your car, which are a total riot of steep rock gardens that keep you on your toes and threaten to pitch you off your bike and take out your teeth. It's totally rideable and enjoyable on an old-school hardtail. In fact, you could conceivably ride a fully rigid bike on this trail, and it's impossible to believe there weren't a lot of neon-painted 26ers in these woods back in the 90s. This trail has had bikes on it for a comparatively long time, and for good reason, because it's eminently bikeable and the scenery is jaw-dropping. Not only that, but the distances are kind of off-putting to hikers who won't enjoy its proximity to the road anyway, and there are too few access points for horse riders to really make the most of this. This trail just doesn't work at a walking pace, but it's a superlative experience at biking pace. So, though it predates mountain biking by decades, it has become an essential destination, a must-ride. Dare I say it, it has become a canonical ride. You need to ride Surveyors Ridge. Consider it your riding assignment. Now, get out there and go ride your bike.